The theologian of hope, Jürgen Moltmann, says it this way: the messianic hope was never the hope of the victors and the rulers. It was always the hope of the defeated and the ground down. The hope of the poor is nothing other than the messianic hope. So when the church attends to those who are defeated and ground down, we share in the messianic hope. And when the church ignores those who are defeated and ground down, we are not in the position to see the breaking dawn. We will always live in fear of what we might be losing and never live in the hope of what God is bringing. The second thing is this: hope looks at everything as if it is in the process of being born, rather than in the process of dying. Valerie Kaur is a Sikh lawyer and activist, and Wilshire is joining with other groups, with my interfaith nonprofit group called Faith Commons, to bring her to Dallas in February. Valerie has written a beautiful book titled See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. In it, she talks about how bleak life can be, but how to find hope in the midst of it. She says, the future is dark, but what it is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb. And that sounds suspiciously to me like the good news of Jesus Christ. The tomb of Good Friday is not the defining moment. It is the moment before the moment. It is the place from which God is going to act decisively. The tomb is the womb of Easter. The darkness is the prelude to the breaking dawn. But how do we operate as people of faith in times of travail? Well, it's like the experience of childbirth. Careful, George, out of your experience. But here again, the testimony of women is required. When the pains of labor almost overwhelm you, you remember that you are charged with the painful privilege of bringing life into the world. You hurt, you breathe, you push. Isaiah tells us we are not only to wait and call upon God to save us, we are to do active waiting and join God in the saving. Break the bonds of injustice, share our bread with the hungry, take the homeless into our homes and clothe the naked. Jesus tells us to raise our heads, to wake up to the times. We are not to fall into selfishness and despair, but to stay alert and to wait on God with hope, which means we are to tend to those who are weighed down in the darkness and live as though the dawn is breaking. This week, Mark Wingfield reported on a recent study by the Pew Research Institute. It turns out that seeing the suffering of others is nearly twice as likely to spur gratitude for things in one's own life than to spur a desire to help those who are suffering. And the reason given by almost all Christian subgroups is that seeing or hearing news of others' suffering makes them tune out the news because it's just too much to take. This precisely is why Christians fail to experience the hope of our faith. It's the same reason Israel failed to sense the presence of God among them long ago. We will only see and experience the breaking dawn of God's coming when we first live in such a way that we are in a position to see it. Kim and I went to a piano concert in Richardson this week. Christmas music. No, it wasn't at the Iceman. It was at the Vickery Performing Arts Center, which would be the home of Sharon Vickery, the other grandmother, don't you know? Our 3 granddaughters take piano lessons, which thrills their musical nana. So they put together a playlist, and all 3 played their favorites. Finley is the oldest at 11, and as you might imagine, the most accomplished thus far. The middle daughter, Zetta, loves horses more than piano, so she does her part. The youngest, Sloane, takes on everything with a passion. You know, when you are the youngest child, you live in the shadow of the older ones most of the time, knowing that you're never quite as good. But if determination counts for anything, right? So after the girls had all played individually, the oldest, Finley, slid onto the bench with the youngest, Sloane, for a duet. Sloane pounded out the simple melody, while Finley added gracious and graceful flourishes. It was beautiful. And Sloane got a taste of something that she could be part of that was more than she could have done by herself. And Finley felt an equal joy in seeing the light break forth on her little sister Sloane's face, as did all of us. Turns out there's something divine about solidarity like that. Amen.